Okay, so welcome back everyone to this week's edition of Impactful Teamwork. I'm Julia Felton, and again, this week I am delighted to bring you another host onto the show. And my guest today is Alfred Poor, and Alfred is a keynote speaker, a technology expert, but more importantly and more relevant for what we're going to be talking about today, he has a real passion for virtual meetings and how you can become more influential presenting online. And as we all know, more and more of the world is moving to a virtual reality in some ways, everything happening online. So I thought it would be great to get his insights for you because as a CEO of a scaling business or as a department head, somebody leading teams, you're interacting with people a lot of times online, on Zoom, on Teams, or other platforms do exist. So I thought it would be great to get you some skills there. So Alfred, welcome to Impactful Teamwork. Super happy to have you here today.
Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure. And you're absolutely right. One of the points that I like to make is that if I had to come to your studio to do this interview,
Yeah.
it probably wouldn't happen.
Probably not. No, we're other
Uh,
sides of the world, everybody. Alfred is
yeah,
over in the US and
there's
I'm here
some
in
water, yeah, there's some water between us. So
yeah.
yeah. Anyway, but yeah, I've spent a lot of time in the last couple of years. I've discovered that I have a particular passion for helping founders of startups with how they come across online, because more and more they're making their pitches online to investors and partners and potential customers and clients. And if it doesn't land, that can be the end of the dream.
Absolutely.
It's important. And there's a lot to unpack about how you can come across better. But I think the place to start is to think about how intentional you are about how you come across. And I blame the pandemic for where we are right now. We've all seen executives who are just brilliant in the boardroom, where you put them up on stage and they just capture the audience and it's great. And you put them on a Zoom call and it looks like they've joined witness protection. And my point is that when you go into the boardroom, when you get up on stage, you're very intentional about how you're going to come across. But what the pandemic taught us was we can't meet together, but we've all got these laptops and they've got cameras and microphones and speakers, and you don't need to be a tech whiz to use Skype or Zoom or the tools that we had at the time. So you just put the computer on your kitchen counter and you open it up and you just start talking without thinking about the impression that you're making. And one of the things I love to say is this is how we typically hold conversations online. The
Yeah.
great big giant head not looking at you, and it just doesn't look great compared with something like this, where you make a stronger impression that's more aligned with the personal and professional branding, with the messaging that you want to put forward about your company.
Yeah, I love that because I'm sure like you, like me, obviously this is where you've got into that. You have been on those horror, like Teams, Zooms, online calls. And yeah, either people have been totally disengaged or they've been looking at you down their nose or you're looking up their nose or they've
Yes.
got so much happening in the background. You're so distracted. I know my friend she's very sensory and very aware, and she just gets drawn to what's in people's background and doesn't even pay attention to anything they say. She can tell you afterwards, oh yeah, they had all of these books, and she's more worried about the books they've got on their bookshelf and what they are all standing for rather than listening to what people are saying. And before we dig into some of the specifics about how we can help people have more influence online, let's just put a little bit of context around why this is so important. You got the 75% solution there on your screen. So I know you were sharing some stats with me about that before the show. So let's just help the listeners understand about why this is so important right now, that people get focused on how they show up online with their teams, like you say, with investors, with customers, with all the different stakeholders we work with.
Exactly. And so I call my video consulting service, I'm working with executives at all levels to help them make a better impression. I call it the 75% solution. And the title comes from a report from Gartner, who did a study, and they predicted that 75% of all business meetings in the US will be happening online.
Wow.
And now that's internal and external meetings. And I know for some of us, like me, it's 95% or higher. It's convenient, it's time efficient, it's cost effective. There's so many reasons why it is just so easy to do. Video meetings are the new telephone. And it's great because you can show things, you can be present, and you get a lot of that nonverbal signaling that goes on that makes conversations so important. The problem is, as we were talking about, if you and I were talking in person, face to face, and I was so close to you, my head was giant. And if I was looking down at the floor, you would probably think, there's something a little bit off with this guy. Right?
Yeah, bit rude. Yeah.
And so it comes across online as well. And so to be able to make the eye contact, to engage with the other person is essential. It's just basic communications. And it's not complicated. It all boils down to just 3 important goals. You need to be seen, you need to be heard, and as you were talking about your friend, you need to minimize distractions. And I'll point out that this is not unique to online. We've all been to business conferences in some giant ballroom, and they've got the speakers set off on the side of the stage behind a podium in the shadows. You can't see them.
Yeah.
And the sound system was probably borrowed from some airline terminal. And then, there's people selling stuff in the back of the room. And so those conversations are going on. And it's not an effective way to communicate. But it's just that, like I said, with COVID and taking advantage of the technology that was readily available, we weren't as intentional about how we used it as we might be on stage or in a conference room. Be seen, be heard, and minimize distractions.
Yeah. And I think the thing was about COVID, wasn't it? We came very reactionary because all of a sudden we had to go to this. And I remember when I was in the corporate world and everyone was going, online meetings are going to stop global travel and things like this because people would have. And yeah, we'd started pre-COVID to have a little bit, but it was really quite sporadic. And I remember sitting in conference rooms in central London and not great bandwidth, and they didn't work very well. And then all of a sudden COVID hit and we all have to move online. So nobody had any training, for want of a better word, in how to do it. And you talked at the beginning there about intentionality. Nobody was intentional because everyone was just reacting, going, oh, God, we were all like deers in a headlight with COVID going on. And then all of a sudden we threw people online and people were then, many people for the first time on video, right? And people are like, God, that's what I look like. That's so horrific. All that kind of stuff that went on for people. So let's talk a little bit about, I love this, be seen, be heard, and minimize the disruption. So perhaps you could take each of those in turns and give us a few tips on how you do that and what works really well in your experience.
Absolutely. The first thing I want to mention is that I actually have been doing virtual for 8 or 9 years. I was producing my own webinars. I produced events for other people, 3-day speaker summit for other speakers, put on a series of online trade shows for consumer electronics companies. So I've been involved in this before, as you say, we all got forced to do it. And as a professional speaker, I also have that experience that comes together with my technology background. So we'll start off with be seen, because that's the easiest one to address first. As you think about it, there's a whole lot to it. For example, we'll start with how you're lit. Let's say we've all pretty much learned not to stand in front of a bright window because that could put your face in shadow and it's hard to see you and all that. You don't need anything fancy. You can just use standard table lamps, floor lamps, whatever. The key thing you want to make sure is that they don't have a colored shade or something on them. You want just a plain white shade as much as you can. You can just use standard household LED lights. I recommend that you get the daylight temperature. It's a higher temperature, it's a bluer light, as opposed to the warmer lights that you can get, which are more like a candlelight. I find that yellowish tinge really isn't flattering for most people. So that bluer light that you get with daylight is a better thing. Get the brightest bulbs that you can, because It's easy to deal with too much light, but it's really hard to deal with not enough.
Yeah.
You get a much better image quality when you have a lot of light. Now, a lot of people go for the ring lights, which are very convenient. They're now LED. You can get them, and almost all of them have a setting so you can change the color, so you can get a daylight color setting. And the cool thing about ring lights is that they're designed so you can put your camera so it looks right through it and the light shines you, which you shouldn't ever do.
Okay.
And
right. Okay. That's why.
the reason for that is when you have the light straight in front of you, it lights your face evenly and it goes flat. You lose all the dynamic highlights that you get in the face. So you'll notice for me, I have more light coming from this side than this side. And that helps bring out the contours of my face. I have another light to fill in so I don't have any dark shadows on the side. But so 2 lights set apart can work really well. If you're using a ring light, that's fine. Just set it off to the side a little bit so that it more on one side of your face than the other.
Okay.
Second thing about ring lights, I don't like to spend my money. I don't like to spend anybody else's money. So I you can get nice little size ring lights and they're really not very helpful because if you think about it, it's not any bigger, much bigger than a bare light bulb.
Yep.
So you're not getting light from too many different angles. The whole point of the ring is to get light coming from multiple angles.
Right.
So for me, 10 inches is really the minimum. 10, 15 inches is a much better, more useful size. But again, set it off about 15, 20 degrees off to the side of your camera. Third thing about ring lights is there's a whole class of people who should never use them.
Okay. Who are those?
And you and I are in it.
Okay.
Have you been on a call where you see the bright little white Cheerios reflected in the glasses? If you're wearing glasses, that ring light can reflect in your glasses. And goal number 3, minimize distractions. I don't know about you, but I find that extremely distracting. And so if you have glasses, I recommend you just get floor lamps, table lamps, whatever, and get them off to the side. You'll see that if I turn this way or this way, you can see the bright lights reflected in my lenses, but they're off enough to the side so that it doesn't reflect.
It's so funny you say that, actually, because as you were talking, that's one of the questions I was going to ask you, because I'm looking at your glasses going, he doesn't have any reflection on those. And I'm like, I'm not looking at mine. Talk about getting distracted by content. I'm going, although I've not got a ring light, but I do have a big kind of strip lamp up here. But interesting.
And if it's high enough, as long as you don't look up too much, and a momentary reflection isn't going to throw people off, but it's that steady reflection that's going to be distracting. If you want to go better, it really doesn't cost a lot. I'm actually using what they call light boxes. They're a stand with a bunch of light bulbs, and then it's got a fabric box with a diffusing white cover in the front. And you can get 2 of these from Amazon here in the US, $100 for 2 of them. It's not a big investment. But so lighting is important. Now, a lot of people will go with sitting in front of a bright window, which is nice because that gives you a nice diffused light. The problem is you can't count on that.
No.
What if it's nighttime? Because working around the world, you talk to people all over the place. What if the clouds roll in? So it's much better to have a situation where you can actually block off the light from the window and have your own light. I've got everything set up on a power strip. So I just throw one switch and I know my light is the way I want it. I know I don't have to think about it. So that's an important.
And I'll just say about the natural light for anyone, because I had this happen to me, because I do have windows further down the room. And I was interviewing somebody for a podcast series, and it was early in the morning because they were in Australia because the time difference. And the sun started coming up, and then I couldn't see anything because the sun's blaring through the windows. So that was one of my experiences. And I actually had to stop the podcast, go and actually shut the curtain, and then, of course, messed up with the lighting as well because that happened. So,
Absolutely. And again, that direct sunlight can be harsh and create big shadows, which is, again, probably not the image that you'd want to portray.
Cool.
So there's lighting. That's part of it. But then There's also, and how do you frame it? And so we've already shown the difference between getting framed like this
Yeah.
and seeing more of you. There's a professor in Berkeley, Balinson is his name, and he's done a lot of research on virtual meetings and how participants react to it and all that. And one of his big points is those nonverbal communication features that go beyond just the facial features. Those are really important as part of the communication. And he's found that the more of your torso that is shown on camera, the more approachable, the more trustworthy, the more engaging you appear. And if you ever, as a professional speaker, if you ever have a speech coach, one of the things they're going to tell you is that this area here is your center of power.
Yeah.
So you want to keep your gestures controlled and in this space. You don't want to go flailing all over the place. But so having control over your gestures down here is important, because if you want to show something, if you're framed like this, you have to bring it up to your face and it looks awkward and unnatural. Down here, it works much better.
So
But the thing I like to tell my clients.
Sorry
Sure.
to interrupt you. So I'm just curious then about that. Are you suggesting that people stand up? Because there's a lot of these desks that move up and down so you can stand, or are you like more on a stool? I'm just curious now.
I'll get to that.
Okay, sorry.
Absolutely. We'll talk about that. But one of the overriding principles here is there's no right answer.
Yeah.
Okay. If you want to show up in a torn t-shirt and cut off pants, if that's coherent with your messaging, that's fine. But don't do that by accident. Do that because you want to do that. And stand, sit, stool. We'll get to that. But the point is that be intentional about the choice that you make.
Yeah.
So what I like to tell my clients is don't listen to that Berkeley professor and don't listen to the speech coach and don't listen to me. Just go watch television. Go watch your favorite news channel. And I guess you have announcers over there, right? Or are they presenters? I know the terms change.
Usually, yeah, I think you probably use presenter, really.
Okay. Yeah. So just look at how they and their guests are framed. You're going to see there'll be a little bit of space between them and the top of their head. You don't want to, they're not a little old person driving the car, barely looking over the dashboard. And then you're going to see them framed somewhere between the bottom of the rib cage and the top of the belt. And I love to say, why do they do it that way? I don't care. If that's what the professionals think is most effective, that's what I'm going to go with.
Yep.
So there's plenty of reason for it. So the problem here is this creates a whole new set of cascading problems. Okay. First of all, you want to get your camera up so that it's about eye level or just a little below, because that's how we talk to each other. We don't talk looking up or looking down at each other. So you want to get your camera up. And as you were saying, that up the nose angle, you have to find someone where that's flattering.
No. Yeah.
So if you're working with your laptop, you bring it up, you get a bunch of boxes and you pile it up high. Problem with that is that now you can't see your keyboard and your hands are up there while you're talking to people. And you're still going to be close to the camera. So you're still going to be large. So you need to move your camera out. Maybe mine's about 3-4 feet away from me.
Yep.
If you put your laptop out there, you can't reach it. This is why I urge everybody to get an external webcam. They're not technically complicated. Plugs into your USB port on your computer. It's really easy to set up. And then you can mount that farther away from you at eye level, and so that you can see more of your torso when you're on screen. So that framing really requires a webcam. And you don't have to spend a lot. My favorites are the Logitech 200 series, 220, $60 in the US. It's not a big investment. One thing I will say is some people think, I want to get a better camera, so I'll get one of those 4K resolution cameras. And my advice is you don't waste the money, because most systems, even Zoom, don't always do the full high definition 80p or 1080p rather. So paying for more resolution that you'll never use doesn't make a lot of
Yeah.
sense.
Sure.
If you're going to be recording a lot of videos and cropping and all those, there can be some advantage to have that extra resolution, but you don't need it for online meetings. You can look great. This is just a 1080p camera that I'm using. Resolution should be plenty for most applications.
Okay. So we've got, in terms of being seen, we've got lighting and we've got the quality of the camera. And you and I were
Right.
talking a bit more before we came on air about, let's talk about the backdrop now, because I think this is something we
Sure.
both
Well, I want,
about. Yeah.
but yeah, before we get to backdrop, I just want to make one more quick.
Okay.
It's really, we're compelled to be drawn down to look at the screen where our face is or the other faces are. Okay. And if you have an external webcam, it's going to be probably above your screen someplace. There are some good webcams that you can get that actually suspend themselves in the middle of the screen, so that when you're looking at the screen, you're looking at the camera. There are 3 or 4 that are very good choices. So if you want to put your monitor up that high and put the camera there, that's one solution. But the problem is that we're pattern matching engines in our head. And from the moment we're born, we're drawn to look for faces.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to learn not to look at it down there and to look at the camera instead. And you can get teleprompter kinds of arrangements. Elgato, who's makes the Stream Deck that you and I were talking about a little bit before, they have a very cool, small teleprompter kind of display that could work for you. But it's really not that hard to learn to look at the camera. But I have a 50-cent solution for people who are struggling with this. And that is, get a pair of googly eyes.
Okay, I love that.
Get a pair of googly eyes, put them right next to your camera, and that'll give you something to look at. And that will be much more engaging and you'll come across as you're paying attention, caring about the other person because you're looking at them. So we can go to distractions, and absolutely virtual backgrounds is a part of that. I have a saying that friends don't let friends use Zoom virtual background or Teams or Google Meet. And the reason is, for the most part, people are just taking Zoom wherever they are. They don't have any special equipment, and either they'll turn on a virtual background or they'll just blur their background, which can be just as bad.
Okay.
And so when your hands appear, they get webbed. Looks like you've got web fingers because it all blurs. And people, obviously I don't have this problem, but people with longer hair, when they move around, it swirls. It looks like they've gone to water world. And sometimes you'll see parts of their chair appear or disappear, or their hand will be disconnected from their clothing, and that's all really distracting.
Yeah.
And it's not just distracting, but is that the level of professional image that you would choose to make if you were intentional about it? And so for me, go ahead.
Go on. No, I was just saying, we were talking as well, because it's one of my pet peeves of these virtual backgrounds, because I just can't take anyone seriously where they keep disappearing in and out. And I think it really breaks trust in a relationship. One of the things that, all the listeners will know is that we're really passionate about how do we build trust and trust-based relationships here in the podcast. So that's one of mine. I'm like, if you can't show up authentically as you, then why should I trust you? Because I don't know what else is a bit shady in the background going on.
And if you haven't thought about how you're coming across, what else haven't you thought about? What else, just how well planned out it is your business? So trust takes forever to build and a moment to tear down. And it's like a tissue. It's just so easy to tear it. Absolutely. I'm right in agreement with you on the trust side. So what do? I find that a blank white wall behind you is going to be better than any simple virtual background that you're gonna put up. You can make virtual backgrounds work well, as some people have probably already figured out. I've got a virtual background here. I can easily move to my library if I want to go someplace else and have a different kind of tone. But in order to do this, I have a green screen,
Okay.
fabric behind me. I have a desktop computer with a big solid state hard drive. I have a big NVIDIA graphics coprocessor card in there. So I'm using a bunch of different software before Zoom so that I have total control over all this. I can make things appear and disappear. If you're intentional about it, if you put in the work and prepare it, you can use virtual backgrounds effectively, but you don't need to. And I will share with your listeners my $30 solution to virtual
Please.
backgrounds.
Yep.
And that is, you just go on Amazon and search for photographic backdrops, and you'll find brick walls and bookshelves and weathered boards and garden scenes and just all kinds of stuff. And then you just go get one of those rolling coat racks, put that behind you, clip this fabric backdrop to you. The backdrop will be in focus, it won't be blurry, and you'll look good in front of it. And if you want to put your branding on, if you've got a sticker with your company logo on, you can stick that on there and it'll look good. So $20, $30. It's a much better solution than a Zoom or Teams virtual background is going to give you.
Yeah. Cool. Okay.
And you mentioned bookshelves.
Yeah.
And your friend, because that's also one of my pet peeves. When I'm watching a news channel and they have a guest on who's sitting in front of their bookshelf. Now, usually they'll have their book turned face out so that you know that they've written a book and so you can go buy it. But I'm like your friend. I start reading the spines and think, okay, what are their political leanings? Who are they influenced by? So when I actually put this together, this is just a stock photo. I had to go into Photoshop and blur this 3 times.
Right.
It's just so you wouldn't be tempted to try to read the titles. Now, as it turns out, for most people, it wouldn't do them much good because they're all in Spanish. But that's a whole other deal. But yeah, so if you're going to have a bookshelf behind you, make sure that it's not a distraction in itself.
Yeah, great tip.
Do that carefully. And don't do what a good friend of mine did, where he had a couple empty beer cans sitting on the shelves as well. Unless that's part of the image that you want to put forth.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing that people forget, isn't it? It's sometimes we just hop on a call and you forget what's in the background. Like your friend with his beer cans, and you're like, oh my gosh, what does that say about me, my brand?
How many times have you seen somebody phone in from a hotel bedroom and the unmade bed is in the background? It's like, you could have it, arrange it almost any different way. Pull the curtains, sit with your back to the curtains. Anything would be better than that. But again, not intentional.
Yeah.
So,
and so what about listening? The other of the attributes there. So we talked a bit about
being heard.
Sorry, being heard.
Yeah. So be seen, be heard, minimize distractions.
Yeah.
So the microphones in your laptop generally they'll get the job done, but the setting where you are makes a big difference. And there are different kinds of microphones that you can use that have different characteristics. In general, you want to be able to use a microphone that's only going to listen to you and not sounds coming from around you. If you're working from a base, if you're working in an office or something like that, one of my favorite solutions, and I've used this for many years, this is the Yeti microphone from Blue. So the Blue Yeti, it's USB. You just plug it into your computer. It just works. But the beauty of it is it has settings, and one of the settings you can choose is called the cardioid, is the most sensitive in this direction. But as you go around this way, it doesn't pay any attention to what sounds that are coming from this side. And so this is a great solution, and it's very sensitive, but it's also very good at rejecting most room noise. If you use a microphone that doesn't reject the room noise, you can have problems. Think about doing a recording in a bathroom.
Yeah.
Where it's all tiles and hard surfaces, and you get all these reflections and noises. And that can be really distracting and make it hard to hear. Again, that airport terminal sound system
Yeah.
has that problem. It's all muddled and
Mhm.
difficult to hear. And the point to make here is this is not just aesthetics. If you can't be seen, if you can't be heard, if there are distractions, people are going to have to work harder to listen to you. They're going to have to work harder to hear what your point is, what you're trying to communicate. And if it's too tiring, they're going to quit and start checking their email or whatever. These aren't just nice to haves. These are fundamentally important things. So I prefer, some people, it's on brand to have a great big old fancy microphone sticking in the frame, and that's fine. I prefer to have as little between me and the
Mm.
person I'm talking to as possible.
Yeah.
Okay. And so that's why I now use a lavalier mic, which it's visible, but it's not
Yeah.
in your face. It's not intrusive. I couldn't use that in this space for a long time because I've got an angled ceiling. I've got some very hard walls around. It's a stone wall behind me. And I ended up having to do some sound control with the room, put up some sound deadening panels to do it. But now with that, I think I come across pretty clearly,
Absolutely.
should have pretty good sound quality.
Excellent.
And
Yeah.
so I'm not getting that echo that I had before I put up these other things. So you just have to be thoughtful about that. You don't have to necessarily go with sound panels. You bring in more cushions, more carpeting, thicker drapes. All those can help soften a hard room. It's a little harder if you're in a office environment
Yeah.
where there's other stuff going on, but that's where a good quality directional mic, like the Blue Yeti, can be helpful.
Mhm.
But so, yeah, thinking about sound quality and experiment a little bit. Get somebody else on the line and say, does this sound better than that? How does this sound? How does this come across? Now I've gone a little overboard. I'm also a musician. I play bluegrass.
Okay.
And so I have a mixer. I have a mixer here so I can control tone and
Right.
volume and all kinds of stuff. And again, it's not expensive, but under $100. But so you can go beyond without having to blow up your budget.
Yeah.
But a lot of simple, low cost things that you can do to make it better.
And I think it's so important for people to recognize. We all acknowledge that there's a lot of people working at home that don't have the luxury of having a large space, a dedicated office. And I think what you've been sharing, Alfred, is that there are economical ways that we can do this with things that can be a bit portable, a movable backdrop, in order to make these things happen. But I really take on board everything you're saying, that as a business owner and a business leader, we need to show up and be credible with others if we are going to be able to influence them. Whether this is a team member that we want to get to do something, take on a project, or we're having to deliver a piece of performance feedback to them, whether it's an investor that we want it to get to the business, whether it's a client or a prospect we're selling to them. Remember, leadership is always about influence. We're always influencing people. And really, I think what Alfred's sharing with us today are ways that you can empower yourself to influence in a better way with some really practical tools and techniques. Because as he said earlier on, the 75% solution is because that Harvard Business Review stat is 75% of meetings will be online.
If I could go just on a small tangent here,
Of course, please.
it fits in with what you were just saying. So if I have a slide or something on my screen that I want to share, what do? I share my screen, right? And it looks like this. And here I am. That's me way up here in the corner, if you can see me, but you can't see me because you're looking at the slide.
Yeah.
Now, if I were on stage, what I would do is I'd get out in front of the screen
Yeah.
and I would be present with my slide, and I can talk about what the slide is showing and so forth, but I'm still in the conversation.
Yeah.
I'm not shoved off to the corner someplace. And if I need to get out of the way, I can do that.
Yeah.
But there are, again, non-technical, easy to use, low cost tools that you can use instead of the traditional screen sharing. You don't have to do it the way that it's always been done. And this can be more engaging and keep your audience's attention and keep them focused on the points that you're trying to make.
Yeah. And I've just got to say, everyone, before we came on air, Alfred and I were talking about some of the tech he's using. He's using something quite complex, it's quite difficult to learn, called OBS. But there's a Philip Navadi inside the show. I'm a student of his, and I'm working at the moment on all of these things to do. It needs a bit of navigation, it needs a bit of time and energy. I'm just very conscious that as a presenter delivering training, I'm really conscious that I want it to be as engaging and interactive as possible for my students, people that are listening to me. I've still got a ways to go. Tomorrow, actually, I have my monthly Teamship teaching that I do once a month. And I've been trying to work on how do I get my iPad connected to do iPad drawings and stuff like that. So there is so much that we can do. And it's a big spectrum, right? And some people, you're very technology focused. I can get into that space and geek out on it when I need to at one end. But there's lots of simpler things like we've been showing today that everyone can implement in their business to give them that more impact with people, which is what's really important.
And Philippe has excellent stuff about using OBS Studio and Stream Deck and all those tools. There are also wonderful tutorials available on YouTube.
Yeah.
Hundreds of them. And if you do, I call the OBS Studio the level 200 course. You know, you don't need to start there, but when we start wishing you could do more, that's a place you can go. My advice is, if you get started with that, get to the point where you have a problem and then go find a YouTube tutorial that addresses that specific. It's like you wouldn't start with Excel and say, teach me everything about Excel. No, how do I write a formula in this cell and solve the problems one at a time, build it slowly, and you can do all kinds of wonderful stuff.
I think that there's so much we can do. But like we said at the beginning, it's all about being intentional, being really conscious about how you want to show up to your audience to make the most impact with them. I'm very conscious of the time. So thank you very much, Alfred, for everything you've shared. I know you've got a kind of gift and stuff that you wanted to share with people. So perhaps you can tell people how they can get hold of you if they want to get some more information or if they want to work with you directly.
Sure. There's a QR code for my Calendly booking. If you want to set up a free call with me and just explore if you have questions that you want to have answered that we didn't go into here, I'm more than happy to share the time. Just remember, I'm US East Coast time. We probably have a smaller overlap window that for many of your audience than others.
Yeah.
I also have a free handout about what I call my video meeting blueprint.
Okay.
And let me just make sure I can find out where it is.
Because for people who can't see the QR code who are listening on the podcast, we'll put a link to that in the show notes so you can book that. And then if you know where the other stuff is, otherwise we'll just put a link in the show notes.
Yeah, the site is, we can I'll get it to you for the show notes, but it's at the75%.com.
Okay,
so
awesome.
THE and then the digits 75 and %.com.
Okay, all right, excellent. Okay. Alfred, thank you so much for coming on today, sharing your wisdom with us. It's such an important topic on how leaders can show up more influentially online, a really critical skill that all of us have got to develop now more than ever. And we really appreciate you sharing all your wisdom, and thank you so much for joining us on the show today.
It's been my pleasure. I had a wonderful time, and I hope this was helpful.
Yeah, no, thank you so much indeed. So everyone, until next week, we'll catch you then. Bye-bye.